Good afternoon. This is Mother from Hearts&Minds Development Center. Welcome to Being Whole, Being Me. Today is really special and I'm like so excited, right? In fact, a little bit nervous, a little bit emotional because for the first time, I'm actually going to bring in a non Malaysian. I broke my own rule. And that's because this lady is just so special in my life. I met her accidentally, and it's been such a good accident to meet her in a program. And she's the first one who really understood when I said, I can't do this exercise because you're going to ask me to visualize, and I can't. And I can't recall any sound or taste, right? Which is something that I've told almost all my teachers. But she was the first one, even before I could finish my first sentence. She said, I get you. The rest has been a beautiful history and friendship formed between me and Aditi. But more than friendship, I am so proud to introduce to you my amazing, beautiful, miraculous therapist. And she's one of those therapists where I feel so proud to say she is my therapist. So help me if you are here to welcome this amazing lady who probably has helped me to smile faster than I would have on my own. Bringing on my favorite Aditi Joshi. Aditi, come on. Hi!
Hi, Malar. I'm speechless with that introduction, but the words that stay in my heart help you to smile faster.
Thank
That
you.
is really the soul of what. And thank you so much for having me. It is really a first moment in my life, my long life,
Thank
that
you. Thank you.
I have been seen like this.
Thank you. In fact, just 2 minutes before, I was telling um, Kirtana that I was feeling very overwhelmed by emotion. And the overwhelming feeling is that of gratitude that I found you and and the way the relationship has been. So it's all here, but it's all good. So I quickly grabbed some tissue just in case I tear and I'm okay because it's really tears of gratitude. So without much ado, right? Like Aditi, yes, I'm very grateful that you said yes so quickly. And we want to just tell the whole world. I want to tell the whole world how miraculous you are, how you have been miraculous for me. But more importantly, the objective is for people to truly understand, for me, what I consider a different perspective, because we hear a lot about the intellectual side, the academic side of trauma. And everyone is talking about mental health and trauma and whatever not. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to dive deep into that. And I know one session is not going to be enough. And you know what? I'm going to bring you in anyway again for my sake. But before that, can you just enlighten us? Because I hardly know you. I think I know your soul, but I don't know you. So tell us your journey, what you'd like the world to know about you, one, and how did you become this magical therapist? Okay, to you.
Okay. So I'm going to dive right in. But before I do, I just want to say thank you to everyone who is here. As you can notice, I have a slight problem with my eyes, so I will not be able to read and notice as you come in, but it's really special for me that you're here and you're listening. So we'll start with the eye. When I was 17, um, I was diagnosed with palsy. My eye shut down. I lost balance. I lost my ability to read, etc. And after a long stint in the hospital, I was told that that's something I would have to live with. They discovered an aneurysm, a swelling in my brain, so on and so forth. And while I had normal, as a 17-year-old teenager, I had a whole life in front of me. I had all kinds of dreams. I was hurt. Maybe I had grief at loss. But in my core, I didn't accept the diagnosis. I, I took it as, yes, in your speciality, You don't have solutions for me. And I believe you when you say that, that this is the end of the road from the aspect of my neurologist. But I thought that when I exit this building, there's a whole universe out there. There has to be people with more knowledge. And so that was the start of this journey. And I did find amazing people out there in this journey. I had the policy 4 times recurrently thereafter.
Wow.
And each time I found amazing people to guide me back to wholeness. But it would not have happened if I had believed that diagnosis and stayed on the path with the steroids and stayed with the labels and the narratives that I was given. So this was I'm saying this because I want people to understand that when someone has undergone trauma, there is often this thing that people want to stay in the victim mindset. No, a lot of people who experience trauma are some of the strongest people you will ever know.
Yeah.
They are used to standing up. They're used to digging a well to drink some water. They have that capacity, but they don't have the tools. And this practice came about when I, at the end of a long journey, found some tools. And those tools were being used in business and they were being used for what I felt like were very surface things, given their capacity to create impact in someone's life. I already had this journey of autoimmune where, I had it built my personality, my character, my perspective, my identity in so many ways. And let me tell you, before, so at a certain point in my life, I underwent gaslighting, narcissistic abuse, and that kind of broke my brain. That was my trauma. All of this was not my trauma. These interactions with health, being told all this, that was a journey. It was a
Right.
journey where I discovered myself. It was a journey for me to expand, become bigger, and I led a robust life. I
Mm.
had friends, I had fun, I had college, I had university, I had accomplishments. I had a normal life that most people tend to have. I was not broken.
Mm.
May have
Mm.
walked a slightly different path. I
Mm.
may have had regrets that I did not get to walk the normal path,
Mm.
you know, but I was not broken in any way.
Mm.
In fact, in many ways, it gave me a whole new perspective to engage with the world. What
Mm.
trauma did, what trauma did was rob me of everything.
Mm.
It robbed me of safety.
Mm.
It robbed me of a connection to myself. It robbed me the ability to regulate my nervous system. It robbed me the ability to connect with other human beings. Nobody felt safe. No place felt safe. My body had such strong reactions. My heart would race. That trauma is like a mine going off inside you. And then you have a blast radius. And the blast radius impacts everything, your nervous system, your physiology, your the people in your life, your health, everything. And to reverse the process, you go to the trigger that creates this explosion. And unfortunately, with trauma, not only are you a victim once when that happened, but because your nervous system cannot regulate itself and come back to normal, the trauma keeps replaying. And the injustice of that something bad happened to you anyways, and then your nervous system cannot. So now it's a never-ending, horrible spiral that someone is undergoing. It's bad enough that they underwent the event that caused the trauma. And
Mm.
then it's made so much worse by the fact that the nervous system cannot recover from it. So that really became, I struggled with this, with PTSD for 10 years.
Wow.
In another life, I was a jewelry designer. In another life, I worked with Indian crafts, and I have a passion for our heritage. And I had dreams of opening a loft. I, you know, I had the whole thing in my mind, pictured out. I had contacts. That was a whole life that just slipped away from my fingers.
Mm.
Because the other, the unsaid victim of trauma is your ability to thrive, to create, to generate. You can only be creative when you feel safe. That part of you shuts down. When I was traumatized, the only creative aspect that I could connect with in my life in those early stages was music and dance. That's where my body would move into a different state. I would lose I would lose the identity of trauma. I would melt into the music. I would melt into the embrace. And so I held on to it. It was only later when I started to study all this and started to study to become a therapist that the word somatic come into my life.
Mm.
But my nervous system guided me to the somatic solution on its own.
Nice. Nice. Thank you. I think this is probably my first session where I'm so quiet. Oh boy, I'm just going to do this because you've given me so many things to dig into. But I'm just going to welcome my friends and my great supporters who are here, who have said hello. Alia, hi Alia. Thanks for coming. Yes, it's an interesting topic, but more than that, I'm so glad you're meeting Aditi, Alia. Nate, hi. Nate is another friend who's a therapist. Gerald is a very good friend. He says, "Good afternoon, Mother Aditi. Looking forward to a wonderful session and to learn." Yes, thank you, Gerald.
Thanks,
Shazana
Rory.
says hi. I think we just connected yesterday, Shazana. Thank you for coming in. GD says, "Good afternoon. Interesting topic. Coming from a specific operation, this definitely enlightened me." Okay, GD, I think you mean operation means surgery, so get well soon, GD.
Get this.
Jason, yes, she is the one I've been talking to you about, Jay. She is the one. And Alia again was wondering why the silence from Malar, because whenever Aditi speaks, so one is emotional for me, and of course, as you were explaining, I was just going into my moments, right? Because one of those things that I was, I've read about trauma. I love the work that I do in emotional intelligence, and
Yes.
we connect emotional intelligence to the nervous system because we're talking about being whole, right? And
Yes.
what I did is I've been in in the space of EQ for a good 20 years, and it's been purely cognitive. It's mind over matter, and I got tired of people telling me it's mind over matter because my heart won't accept it. That was my problem. I wanted to believe it so much, but my heart doesn't settle in, right? Because I'm feeling it all in my body. And of course, last year, as I told you, I was hit really badly, right? And for the first time, I was actually, facing the reality. You mean to say that this is PTSD for me, right? Because I, I don't think I was in denial, but it didn't match because all my life I thought I was thriving until I had a big fall last year, and thank God I found you. But anyway, so you've given us a lot of nuggets, right? Because what I want to do in today's session is really, really have the clarity of really what the heck is trauma. Because everyone, I think the problem with any new word, any new psychological word is that we either undermine it or we overuse it. So suddenly
Yes.
everyone is traumatized, all right? Or people who are traumatized and they are telling you they're experiencing a trigger or a trauma, we then say they're not strong and we give them the good advice of mind over matter, which I despise a lot because I was there for a long time, right? Because one of the recognition I had, Aditi, during this whole thing is this: I always, thought I was a strong woman. But what I realized through the sessions is that, hey, I wasn't strong, but I was numb. So when you're numb, you don't show pain. People say you're strong, and you get caught in that identity, right? And so for me, whenever I see people saying you are strong, I get worried because I want to differentiate being strong and being numb, right? Because when the numbness go and the pain hits and you fall, you want to make sure you're not broken, which is what you said trauma is all about, right? So very quickly, let's talk about Because when you talk about trauma, I think you said broken. So would that be a correct
So
thing? Yeah.
those were my words.
Sure.
I would keep telling people I feel like my brain broke.
Okay.
These are the words. And recently, when I was attending the Trauma Super Conference, another speaker from Israel who had our own experience with trauma used the exact same words. So, this is the truth of our physiology. We are saying what happens to us.
Mm,
We are saying simplistically, my brain broke, but basically, the brain lost its ability. The nervous system lost its ability to regulate out of a survival response. We used to make the survival response fight or flight, but as you just explained, your strong woman was the freeze response. And we
mm,
have Stephen Porges and his work with the polyvagal theory to thank for
mm,
our understanding of the freeze. And I'm
mm,
so glad you brought up the identity aspect
mm,
of trauma.
mm,
So, when we experience trauma,
mm,
imagine trauma is like fire, and you put your hand in fire. You want to come back to safety, you pull it out, right?
mm,
So, the body also has basically the nervous system is working to bring you back to safety. Trauma is when that nervous system regulation is cycle is not complete.
mm,
When you have not moved out of being afraid or angry or frozen or dissociated from the body, when that cycle is so, for instance, when I got my diagnosis,
mm.
I didn't shut down. I had a cry about it, I may have been angry about it, my body processed it. And the
Okay.
energy, the survival energy, when you feel you're a threat, the
Mm,
survival activation gets discharged. When that
right.
cycle is complete, and we are
Mm,
back in our normal state where we can access our creativity, our ability to thrive, all aspects of our personality. When we are in survival, our spectrum becomes very low. Anger, fear, ability to do things, etc. Everything is controlled by the survival state.
mm,
And when we get trapped inside, that is what, and when that keeps replaying in our nervous system, and our nervous system takes over us,
mm.
that is PTSD. That is trauma, where
Okay.
you are not in control. And that's why when you were talking about the cognitive part does not, because this overrides the cognitive part.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that survival energy has not been discharged. That
Right.
cycle has not been complete. And your nervous system keeps trying in
Right.
each of those triggers that you will come and hit reset.
Right. So we'll talk about triggers shortly, but I just want to paraphrase what you've said because I think you've given us a lot of technical language. And so I'm going to do my best to do lay simple language to make sure I understand what you've said. So basically what we are saying is that when so in EQ we talk about a concept of emotional hijacking. So when we are not safe,
Yes.
we go into fight, flight, freeze. And when we go into fight, flight, freeze, all right, if it's a temporary state, then and you are able to fight, come back to life, strive and thrive through that. I think would it be correct if I say, that's where we are resilient. That means we are able to experience adversity and grow from it, overcome it and grow.
Yes.
And we call that
Absolutely. Your nervous system fought in that moment, found its safety, and came back to regulation.
came back. So that's
Or you ran away and you found safety and you've
all
come
right.
back to regulation. Or you froze for a minute, the danger passed, and you came back to being in your normal state.
Right.
Those are dysregulated states, your fight or your flight. And your normal state is your rest and digest state,
Right.
where now here your safety, you can create whatever you want.
Sure, sure. So we all go into when we are not safe, we go into fight, flight, freeze modes, and that's a normal state. It means it's a temporary state. I get in. I know how to figure out a way with my skills, with my knowledge, whatever I do,
Exactly.
come back to safety, which means then I have regulated myself. My nervous system comes back to what we call normal. Whereas a trauma is where you get stuck there.
Yes.
Correct?
Trauma
Now,
is when every little thing, even if you've come to baseline, the triggers are so many and so intense that you are living constantly in the vicinity of a triggered state if
Sure.
you're not in it.
Does that show up because then I with triggers then I might become very sensitive over smallest thing. I have anxiety. Is that how
So, yes,
triggers show up?
absolutely. Yeah. So, triggers are once you're in this activated state, where was this created? This was, if we go back in the timeline of our evolution, this this response is from our limbic system.
Right.
uh, this is the most primitive nervous system of self-regulation, which was built around just safety.
Mm,
When we were in the jungle, when we were
mm,
reptiles, when we
mm,
were animals, if we were
right.
not safe, if this was not activated immediately, if it did not override everything else, we would be dead.
Mm,
So it's not a cognitive function. It's an involuntary response.
mm,
And so when you have this response, it's a lot of big body reactions.
mm,
And once you achieve safety, sorry, let me backtrack. So when you have this response, everything appears scary to you. Other
right.
human beings are scary. So I may be sitting across from you, but when I'm triggered, I will think Mala looks cross. Why is she staring at me? What is up with her? I think she's going to yell at me. Now she's going to tell me I did put
Right. Right.
because I'm triggered. Because I have this, there's adrenaline pumping through my blood,
Nice.
cortisol. My physiology has been designed to keep me safe, which
Nice.
means my focus is on the attack.
Okay.
So
So there's a
we,
need, there's always a need to, so I'm on alert mode all the time because I'm expecting to be attacked and I become sensitive and hyper
yes,
vigilant, which
that's
means that
exactly.
I could be overreacting to everything that happens.
You almost certainly would be overreacting, and over and above that, you miss out because you're in this state, your other states of co-regulation, which as we evolved, we have in our nervous system because of the vagus nerve, where when you smile, something happens in my nervous system. When I smile, something happens in your nervous system.
Okay, now because we're bringing in a lot of technical words, so very simple, right? So what we've covered so far, for those who've just joined us, that's hi James, yes, help Malar and help everyone for sure. Hi Lewis, hello Malar and Aditi, very timely topic. That's another good friend of mine. Oh, and this amazing woman, Honey. Hello Malar, Aditi, sending love from Kuala Selangor. Yes, I got it, Honey. And hi, Vijay, Kumar, Victor. Thank you for joining us today. So, as these people join us, what we've covered so far is defining trauma and how it actually trauma is really a part of our nervous system. And that's where I find Aditi's work very, very different because very often trauma and the kind of mental health issues that we deal with, we are so often bombarded with mind over matter, but it is just not the mind. It isn't our whole body because we're a whole person, right? And what Aditi is actually giving us is really how the brain works, how the limbic brain works naturally. It's about being human, accepting that we go into fight, flight, freeze modes and we do overcome it. We thrive and we become resilient through adversity. But there are times some things are unresolved that becomes your base programming. And when you have that, you have triggers. And when you have triggers, there are a lot of reactions because we don't feel safe. So the main idea here is, do we feel safe or not? And when we don't feel safe, we could be drawing out from our traumatic experiences. Now, having said that, right? So we've covered trauma, right? Today the topic is actually collapsing. It's collapsing because one of those things that I think amazed me in my few sessions with you is, I mean, I've been working on myself my almost all life, right? And this time when I felt so triggered, I was so mad, because I was thinking, mind my language. What the heck, I've been working on myself my whole life, and another one, and this one I didn't know how to. I didn't have a DIY to get myself out, right? And so what I learned from you and from my sessions with you is this: you do so much work in so little time. right? You got need to go to places, and that's where the idea of collapsing PTSD became really very interesting, because if you had a trauma, you had a trauma. There's nothing you can do about it because you had it, right? But you want to make sure it doesn't rule your future. You need to heal so that you don't ruin, and it doesn't take control of your future. You want to be in control of your life. Now, so tell me, when you say collapsing, so first tell us a little bit about PTSD and how that works. And when you say collapsing, because you're looking at shorter time frame for people to heal. So tell us about PTSD, and what do you mean by, in your experience, how do you use your expertise, right? And what have you seen about collapsing PTSD, so that the viewers here will know how to reach out to you, or will know people who have PTSD. They know how to recognize the symptom and say, okay, that's a PTSD. Let's connect. Yeah. So tell us.
Okay. So I think to recognize PTSD, it's we must understand the word trigger.
Okay.
And a trigger is that moment where you were completely fine, and post that moment, everything escalates, and it escalates in a body way. It escalates in a way that you can't control. So say if it is with someone that you know, and they're completely fine, but you're walking around on eggshells around them because you don't know what is going to set them off. What is going to set them off is a trigger, and what happens thereafter is the response, post-traumatic stress response, and it will manifest in excuse me, it'll manifest in a bunch of ways. Avoidance, being numb, being fearful, being aggressive, being having very disproportionate reactions. For me, my PTSD was I just needed the phone to ring for my whole body to start shivering, trembling, shivering. I just needed the doorbell to ring. I sought safety. I only felt safe behind the shoulders of my father. And I have lived alone. I went to boarding school. I have lived alone for the better part of my life. I'm very independent. It doesn't bother me. I've never had issues going to places alone, watching movies alone, sitting in. I love my own time. I don't shake easily. From that, I went to this. It's really about losing, not knowing which moment you will be under. And I want to quote a show called Station 19. There's a therapist, and she says, if it's hysterical, it's historical. And I think that's a beautiful phrase. If it's hysterical, it's historical. It's come from a trauma that you suffered. It's a very easy way to understand it. It's not happening now, it happened already, and your body's trying to. Something else is giving you that map. Go there and fix it. It's an opportunity. Every time you're triggered is the best moment and the best opportunity to go right back to source and fix that. When you collapse this trigger where it was embedded in your body, then the PTSD collapses. Malar, I've lost the sound on you.
No, yeah, I muted myself because every Friday someone decides to drill upstairs, but never mind. So, I love the word triggers. Just to let you know, I'm doing a collection of poems which is going to be called Triggers. So it's like, right? Okay, but that's an affirmation for me. That's a sidetrack now. So for people who are watching this now or later, right? So can I say that when I am over experiencing an emotion, that means the experience of emotions that I'm experiencing does not match the event or what happened, right? That could be a trigger if I want to recognize, or I could be over experiencing in terms of anxiety and fear, too afraid to go and say hello, too afraid to do stuff, and so you avoid, you run away, you shrink yourself, you play small and stuff like that, right? So when you're, can I say that, is it fair for me to say one of the symptoms is if you're over experiencing something that
Yes.
doesn't match the event, that could be a trigger for us to recognize our trigger. And
Yeah.
what you're saying is, and that's a it could be, that's a PTSD. So that's a trigger. That could be a PTSD that has got a historical event, that that you have become
Yeah.
hysterical in that sense. I get that, right? And what you're saying is that if you revisit that event and resolve where it's coming from,
Yes.
that that's collapsing PTSD. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes, yes, Manu, but there is one slight. So there are triggers, and then there's PTSD, and PTSD is of we use it to refer to sustained unresolved trauma, which is debilitating. So, say a rape victim or someone who was, displaced. I have to say the event is not important, but I'm using these extraordinary events because that's very hard to come back from.
Sure.
It's not like a memory you can put out. Your nervous system is completely out of whack. So I'm giving other things can be trauma. Just being left alone in a car and you thought you were abandoned can be trauma. Anything can be
Yeah.
trauma. It's how
It's
your nervous system
yeah.
perceives it.
Yeah, it's an event, and
Yeah.
how I experience the event. And
Yes.
when I experience the event, and if my nervous system feels unsafe, that becomes a traumatic
Yeah.
experience
The,
for me.
the the cycle not being broken. So you're reliving the event. The memories are haunting you. You can't sleep at night. You start shivering at the first thought of the event recurring. So actually even your physiology changes. Your memories are stored in the amygdala. It's a part of the your limbic brain, and with time, when this reaction is not, when this survival energy is not discharged, when the trauma keeps replaying itself in your body, and you go through the shivers and the fear and all of that, the sobbing, the not wanting to meet people, feeling misunderstood, etc., etc., that part of your brain actually increases in size.
Right.
So it's about coming back to the normal. It's about being not talking your way out of it. It's about quieting down that response, that loop of terror, fear,
Nice.
that is
Thank
PTSD.
you. So it's how the person is experiencing it. And some events are clearly traumatic, but we cannot downplay how people are experiencing it. So when someone
Yes.
says, I'm afraid of the dark, I'm afraid of this, don't undermine it on it, because
No.
they are telling you what they've experienced and we don't know. This is just to. And so when we recognize other people overreacting, we now know that that could be a trigger. And
Yes,
I think the
absolutely.
idea is, if we then think it is a trigger, then how can we support for that person to sort of talk about it? I think the first thing is to make them feel safe, and
Yes.
then to help them
That is-
talk about it. All right,
You
become
said
the first therapist for them to get it out
yes.
of the system. Because if people are able to talk about it without the fear of judgment, that is already releasing the trauma, right? It's the body is having an
Absolutely.
opportunity to talk about it because there's no more shame associated to it. So
Absolutely.
the big thing is we don't talk about things because it's so much of shame, right? And so I think that's the first part that you're talking about, right?
You've nailed it, Malar. You've nailed it. It is trauma is nothing but a play for safety. And if you
Nice.
can just even be with the person when they're telling you about it, and when they
Mm,
stop, you can ask them, how does that make you feel? Instead of telling them,
mm, mm, mm.
you can ask them, how can I support you right now?
Yeah. I think the idea, I think what we need to learn, and so what I have learned is really knowing how to make people feel safe. Like first, because I have so many good friends and I wasn't feeling safe, and it has nothing to do with them. It was nothing to do with that. So for me, what was interesting and what I realized was this, right? When I get my anxiety attacks, how do I get it? My blood pressure goes lower,
Yes, that's your
right?
freeze response again.
Yes, my freeze response, my blood pressure goes lower, and I was struggling with this all my life, right? My blood pressure goes, hits low, and when it hits really low, then I'll feel dizzy, and I know I'm going to pass out, right? But yeah, so when I get those things, I now know that it's a trigger for me, because I've learned how to. So when I went to the doctors,
The big
because
body reactions, any
yeah,
big body reaction.
my doctors just say get used to it. It's low blood pressure. It's not high blood pressure, right? until I sat in a session and I was talking to a therapist, and he was talking about how, when we get angry, blood pressure rises up, right? And then I asked him, I said, so am I suppressing when my blood pressure is going down? And then I started looking at my patterns. And I can tell you, since I've been working on myself last year, my low blood pressure has become more regulated. So I'm not having that as much as I used to have it in the past. So that's that. We have two very interesting questions coming up. I want to address those questions first, and then we will dig a little bit deeper into what you've said. So far, what have we covered? We've covered what trauma means, what happens to the nervous system, the idea of triggers and PTSD, and how do we collapse it, and what we can collapse, is how people are experiencing, and how we can actually look at our own triggers and identify triggers in other people, and how we can then support them. And support here means not solving the problem, but just
Yes,
listening to them so that they feel safe. So the idea is this, right? The best support any one of us can give ourselves and other people is making people feel safe. And that's all we need to focus on, right? Okay. While
absolutely.
we do that, Gerald says, this is amazing. Oh, he says it's amazing. Nice, Gerald. This is amazing. Not sure if this relates, but what is happening with someone who is sensitive, having moods, and basically having others walking on eggshells when communicating? Ayo, Gerald, I hope you're not talking about me. Okay. So okay. All right. So we'll just answer. I'll read the question to you one more time. He's asking, what is happening? So he's trying to understand someone who is sensitive, having moods, and basically have people around him or her walking on eggshells when they're communicating. Means when I'm trying to talk to you, I'm like, oh, am I going to piss you off? Are you going to get into a mood? Are you going to, am I going to trigger something? That sort of a thing. So he wants to know what could be happening with this person.
So, Gerald, everything that I say at this point will be conjecture because what is actually happening with a person is happening inside their neurobiology. But from from a broader perspective, what could be happening? Here is what could be happening with the person. I think you've identified a very interesting and very realistic example. The person could be triggered. When people are operating on their programming, they have no idea what their triggers are and they're continuously getting triggered. And then the people around them are overcompensating to cope with those triggers until somebody brings an awareness into the situation in whatever way. Till the trigger is not faced, the cycle will repeat itself. Either you will overcompensate or you will avoid the situation. If someone is if I am making everyone around me walk on eggshells, people around me will find a way to defend themselves. They will either, if they are people pleasers, they will overcompensate for me.
Mm,
People pleasing being maybe a trauma response that they had growing up.
mm,
And if they are going into the flight response, they will just avoid me.
mm. So that's too extreme. We try either too hard
Yes.
or we just walk away. That's the flight response, right?
Yes.
Flight response.
Or you can stay in the same room but you don't respond. You're numb.
Yeah, yeah.
You've
I
tuned that whole thing out.
All right. So, can you give us an example of how someone overcompensates?
Overcompensation is you see it all the time.
Mm,
If someone is tantruming, making everyone else walk on eggshells, the overcompensating person will do everything for them. Oh,
right.
anticipate before they start to tantrum. What will stop them from tantruming?
Mm,
If
mm,
they have really big reactions, they'll calm them down. They'll bring humor in the room. They'll give them assurance, kindness, safety. They'll take it upon themselves to improve the other person's
right.
mood, improve the mood of the room. They keep taking the responsibility of emotional safety for the space, for the entire space, for
So,
everyone that's in the room and in the interaction.
So can I say overcompensation is a behavior where we actually, take ownership or even responsibility for other people, and that.
And what do you do with yourself in that moment, Malar? That is absolutely right. But there's another thing happening. When you're taking responsibility of other people, what are you doing to yourself?
I don't know. Am I
You're
victimizing?
abandoning yourself for a minute.
Yeah,
You're not staying rooted in your own needs.
yeah,
You are
yeah.
now starting to respond to the needs of the person tantruming and the other people in the room.
Mm, mm, mm.
So two
Yeah,
things are happening.
yeah. Because that sounds like something that I have done well. And the reason and the reason I'm saying that is that I think overcompensation is celebrated, right? So especially,
Yes,
well, I can say this because
yes,
I'm a woman, especially with women empowerment. We wear this crown of I can do everything, and I have this superwoman syndrome where I'm a great this and a great that and a great this, and I'm everywhere for everybody in whatever manner they want, and we celebrate.
yes.
All right, we celebrate that, and I think it's really important for us to recognize what we're doing to ourselves, which is abandoning ourselves, and we're taking responsibility and accountability for other people. And for me, I think one of those greatest insight I had is that I am not giving the other person to live their best life by taking away that opportunity from them, right? And so for me that was a big recognition, right? So fantastic. So that's overcompensation, and of course the other one is to actually totally withdraw and become invisible, right? I'm going to just read out what Vijay has said, Vijay Kumar, and this is so important right now. Always associated PTSD with war veterans reliving the ravages and the atrocities committed during wartime long after. This is at perhaps at the end of severity when to label it PTSD. I don't know, Aditi, do you have a quick answer to that?
Yes, I do. Vijay, you're not wrong in to say that PTSD did. I mean, you see it a lot in war veterans, even a lot of the studying that I do, and the NLP techniques that were developed and are continuously, even now, being developed with the Research and Recognition Project. All the work is happening with war vets, but that does not mean that PTSD. I didn't go to any war, but I had severe PTSD for 10 years. My nervous system, and that's why I told the history of I had seen events that were significant where my life was threatened, but I did not experience trauma. My nervous system had the bandwidth to regulate that information. But at a certain moment, my nervous system lost its ability to regulate itself. And it really is irrelevant what the incident was. When you lose the ability, some people will have PTSD several years after the event because their body has frozen. They have blocked that negative memory off. It could be of assault, it could be of some mishap in their childhood, and it
Mm,
will come up 30 years later. But once it does come up, the nervous system is freaking out. It wants to find a place to be safe again, but it's not able to. And that freak out reaction, which is going on loop, that is PTSD. It's the same thing that happens with warwits. They can't sleep in the night. They're lying with the gun under their head. They're ready to clock it out at a perceived intruder, even when they're in a safe suburb, in they're in the small town that they grew up in. The trauma is inside. You're carrying your triggers wherever you go, and you're getting triggered constantly. That, for me, from the chair, that is PTSD. When you cannot self regulate, when you cannot come out of that cycle, whatever the event that caused it, it's irrelevant. Yes,
thank you.
to be triggered as a human being and to have some historical precedent, that's fine. All of us have that. But to be caught in that cycle and to not be able to break that cycle, that is PTSD, where you're walking around with a whole university of trauma, of triggers inside you, and they are controlling your life, and you don't have access to yourself.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
hope that
So
helps.
I just wanted to add on to what you were saying. So, and tell me whether I've understood it. So I think the war veterans are it's been clearly defined, and that's why I think I was talking to a friend of mine, Major Prabhakar, and we hope to bring him into the show. He talks about how when you're in the army and when you leave, or in the armed forces, when you leave and you retire, they actually have a program for you to transition back to normal life. Because what they're doing with this army training is that they are preparing you for the hijack. They're preparing you for the attack. So your body is trained to be vigilant, trained to not feel safe, so that you react quickly. And if you don't learn how to switch that off, they found that people have difficulty transitioning back to normal life. I think that's known and that happens, right? But I from what you are saying about safety also, is that we all have our own internal wars. Yeah, right. The father that I want to be protected from, the mother that I want to be protected from, the teacher that I want to be protected from, or my boss that I want to be protected from. And that's a mini war that's happening within us, that we may undermine the effect, I think. Would that be safe enough to say?
Yes, yes,
And having said that, I'm actually working with a couple of doctors, right, who have been, working directly in COVID wards, and and I know they are. It's been a traumatic experience for them, right? To see things for the first time, to it's being in a war zone, looking at
yes,
people.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and that's one of those things that we hope we can bring in more awareness to people who have experienced COVID in many ways, and that's been a major traumatic experience for people. And I'm not sure whether we're doing enough for that. Yeah, so I just wanted to use that space to add that on. Gerald says, "Thank you, Aditi, for the wonderful answer." And this I have to read out loud. And Malar, haha, it's not you. Okay, thank you, la. I'm glad I'm not the one. Now, Regina Morris says, is asking a question: how do we help the overcompensating person from burnout? So I think that for me, I see this as two questions, Aditi, because I'm interested. So first and foremost, how do we help an overcompensating person from burnout? So I want to see this as two questions, right? Because first and foremost, are we accepting that overcompensation is okay? One.
So,
Because if we say it's okay, then only that leads to a burnout, right? So I'm leaving the question with you now. I have two questions for you.
Regina, you're not going to like my answer. It's a great question,
Mm,
but it's a very personal choice whether to overcompensate or not.
okay.
But I would say this: overcompensation should be used for small periods of time, not as a continuous coping, not as your identity,
Mm,
because it's not fixing the situation. It's feeding the situation, it's allowing it to grow bigger. It's harmful to the person that you're overcompensating for, and it's harmful to you or to whoever is overcompensating.
mm,
So, if you're going to overcompensate, you will burn out.
mm,
If it's a temporary thing, I would say create resources around you, resources that replenish you.
mm,
So if you are over giving somewhere, go to somewhere where people are giving you more than you are giving. Very simplistically, if you are perpetually the giver, you are going to run out. The
mm,
bank balance is finite, it's not infinite. And unless you create other resources that will fill in, you're going to experience burnout. But the real question is, do you want to overcompensate? And my answer on that is always it's a short term quick fix for a momentary situation. There's not every situation where you're in an office and you need to overcompensate, or it's something, it's a singular event and you overcompensate. But if that becomes your lifestyle, you are feeding the problem, you're not
okay.
addressing the problem, and it will become much bigger, and then you will have to deal with it in a way that may not be entirely in your control.
Nice,
Address it now.
nice, nice. So, I loved your answer. But so basically, sometimes we are put in situations, and we want to overcompensate, and it's okay if it's short term. But don't become an addict lah, basically. Don't get addicted to overcompensating, because that's
Don't
become
make it your identity.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. Because a lot of I know a lot of us take pride in saying that, it's because of me, the whole family is in the right space. We take a lot of pride in that, right? And so it's very important that we know we can do it short term. But basically, what Aditi is saying is that, be aware and be conscious about your choices and the impact of the choices on you as a person and on the person that you're overcompensating before you make the next conscious choice and for how long you want to do it, right? And Regina says, I like your answer, Aditi. Indefinite overcompensation creates a clear and present danger for all parties. Fantastic. Now, before Jay has another question. She said, how would you know or identify when you're overcompensating? How do you know when you're overcompensating? You burn out lah, you feel tired, you feel fed up, you feel like, oh my god, why is it all around me, my shoulders are heavy. Okay, sorry, that's not my answer, but
No,
yours.
no, no, that's fine. That's fine. You were saying it just right. It doesn't feel good inside. You don't want to do it.
Mm,
You
mm,
see the greater need and you step into that need.
mm,
It's not what you want to do. You're abandoning what you want to do and be in that moment. It's that internal where you have to adjust your body posture because you're pulling up something extra
mm,
to give that extra.
mm, mm.
You
So can
don't
I
really want to do it.
right? So can I say that when I'm doing things that I might be cognitively telling, oh, I do this because I love these people, I love my family. We use language in the way sometimes we have been programmed, right? So I say all the right things that sounds right here, but physically I'm not experiencing calmness. I'm not experiencing love. I'm not enjoying the process. I'm not happy. Or for me, it's peace more than happiness. I feel, why am I doing something good, but I'm not feeling good in my body, right? For me, it's that, right? So there seem to be, for me, I've seen that it's a disconnect to who I really am, right?
Yes.
I'm not congruent because mentally I'm saying, all the positive things, and I've got this beautiful smile that I can put on. But here, I just don't feel like doing it. I don't want to be in this space. And I could be a chronic complainer internally, if not externally. I mean, externally is easier to be seen, but internally I'm actually complaining, right? So, what are some symptoms that you think when we are disconnecting with ourselves, Aditi?
When you don't actually when the when you don't feel the fullness of the emotion, you are not in the present. You are not Our natural state should be alive, it should be vibrant, it should be inspired, it should be activated. Whether you are playing with a child, whether you are reading something on your phone, all of you should be present and you
Mm-hmm.
will feel it in your body. And when you're fighting yourself, when you're not in congruence with yourself, whether it's avoidance, freeze, shut down, overcompensation, there will be less of you. There will be less of you in every interaction. And
Okay.
that less of you can come with emotions that are annoyance, irritation, just boredom, zoning out, just the
Okay.
lack of allness. Yes,
Nice.
sorry, that's not even
Well,
a word, but
it goes with the topic being whole, being me. So it's like, how do I not abandon myself, which is being me? And when I bring my whole self together, that means mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, when all of me is together in one space, I can be present and be totally alive at every moment of life.
it really takes a second, to check in and you're doing nothing, but you're all here and you feel
Mm.
great. And that you don't need a reason to feel great. Just all of you is here and it's a great feeling.
Nice, nice. So I want to just cover one more thing. As we don't have questions, I have loads of questions for you. But I think one of those things that I absolutely love about the work, where I met you and the work that you do and the work I believe in through Gestalt is this, right? I think a lot of times, especially when we are educated, right, we're so much in our head. And one of the major breakthroughs for me and what I've seen through the work that you do and other people have done, and some work I've done, is that we ignore the signs of the body,
Yes.
which is the somatic experience, because we think that the pain is here and we ignore the pain in the system. right? Which is managed, controlled, and taken care by the nervous system. And if I'm not aware, especially if you're like me and you learn how to be strong and numb, you may not even identify with the pain in the body. So can you just tell us how somatic experiences work, and how healing from our visceral side or the somatic side, in the way you do it, how that actually helps people heal better?
Yeah. So I'm going to take the example of this moment here, right? I I explained to some people I'm an introvert. I've never done this before.
Mm,
Um, so if I were in my mind before this started, I could make up a million scenarios and believe them to be true.
mm,
But the experience of it in this moment is my
mm,
truth. So
mm,
the body, the somatic body carries its own truth, whereas the mind can make up multiple truths. None of
mm,
them which are founded in actual truth.
mm.
We make the mistake of thinking we are our mind. We make the mistake of thinking that we are what we think.
Yeah.
We forget we are all of this.
Mm,
And all of this carries so much
mm,
intelligence, information, etc.
mm,
And we've never been taught how to access it. We've
mm,
been taught discipline. We've been taught being strong. We've been taught how to be brave. All of
mm,
these require us to override some urges, experiences, etc. And we've idolized it.
mm,
We kind of made dissociation normal.
mm,
I glorified it to myself when I was dealing with my eye issue, etc. And I would be in extreme pain. It would be painful for me to walk, but I would override it. And I would get up and I would get into a pair of heels and I would dance. Because after 15 minutes, the body adapts. It
mm,
adapts to that threshold of pain and normalizes it.
mm,
And it served me well. But to think of it in absolutes is a disservice. Use it when you need to, dip into that when you need to. But understand that this is not you. All of this is you. And this the body contains all your truths. It doesn't lie. It's not making up a story. Whatever is stored, the emotion that is stored in your body is a true emotion.
mm.
And when you unlock it, you release the energy that is your own energy that has been sitting trapped in there. And
Right.
it's now more congruent with all of you. And that's healing. And the more parts of you that you bring back to your life, the more alive and more vibrant you become, the more powerful you are.
Mm,
The work is, I mean, it is I came to this work because I wanted to heal myself. I believe I will fix my eye.
mm,
I believe I will fix my autoimmune disorder.
mm,
And I know, like with NLP, with some of the work that we've done, we've reversed allergies. I have people who's just after a single session, their asthma has gone down 50%. Because somewhere an energy is blocked and trapped inside our body that we did not allow to release. And it takes, imagine if you had to push against yourself for an hour, how tired you would be.
mm.
And we're walking around a whole lifetime pushing against ourselves in certain parts of our body. It's exhausting and it's damaging.
Nice, nice. And that's why we get tired. So,
Yes.
we need to pay attention when we say we are tired, which
Yes.
part of ourselves is tired, because we tend to sometimes just dismiss it that, physically I'm tired, right? But that
Yes.
tiredness is actually coming from somewhere, right? So that's one thing to pay attention to.
That's a
I'm going
beautiful, very lovely way to start. To just
to.
start noticing where and to stay with it.
Mm,
First, to stay with it without trying to fix it.
mm,
And that in itself is a game changer.
nice, nice. Just love yourself, yeah. Okay, now I want to go into rapid fire. It's one or two, but I'm not done. I have two burning questions that I want to ask right now. So when you need because what I love about people like you is you choose to become a therapist, especially when it has worked for you and you're doing your own search. I find people like you are a different type of a therapist, right? Because your empathy and your compassion is just a different class altogether. But in you would have worked with many cases, right? Including mine. Now, what when you look at people who come to you for therapy, and you are in a space where you can actually help them with um, collapsing, their PTSD, right? What is the one attitude, attribute, or whatever you want to call it, state, right, that doesn't help people to collapse their own PTSD when they come for therapy?
I
That you've seen.
It's a beautiful question, and that is the only rule I apply. People have to have a hunger
Mm,
for their solution.
mm,
If they're coming in with knowing,
mm,
if they're coming in with control, if they're coming in with a filter, whatever filter they bring is what will affect their result. If
mm.
I come in with a lot of doubt, that's what I'll get back from the field.
Right.
It's what you're putting out. So it's like, say, I'm made of blue ink and I put it in water. The color of the water is going to be a little bluer than when I entered it. It's the same thing. But if you're just coming in with hunger that I want to fix my problem, I have seen what should take 3 sessions to resolve get resolved in a single session.
Mm,
I'm anyways holding the intention. I lost 10 years of my life. This is my clarity. I want to do this in the shortest time ever. That's why I like the modalities. I want the people who come to me to have to spend less time in therapy and more time living their life. And the
ah,
fact that I can get them, their energy, their time, their money, their resources back out to wherever they are.
nice, nice.
So I want that anyways for them, but they need to want it for themselves too.
Mm, mm, mm. Nice. Thank you very
It
much.
reflects back to you what you bring to it.
Thank you. Thank you. And so when I choose my therapist, I mean, I'm not going to choose any other therapist because I've got you, but not everybody has got you. So when I'm going out there and I'm trying to choose a therapist, what is that one thing that I need to connect with, especially when I'm looking at alternative therapy? Right? Because I think that's the mainstream where you go to a psychiatry, psychologists, mental health experts who are very academically acclaimed, right? And that's a school, there's a need for that, right? But I'm very much into wanting to introduce alternative and probably wisdom, untapped wisdom, right? That has doesn't have a structure and a process yet for it to go into the mainstream line, like what you're doing. So if I'm going out there looking for, so what would be that one thing that you think is a sign for someone who's looking for help to say, you know what, I found her. I mean, that's what I felt with you, right? Because I was exploring so many, and the first 5 minutes I know they are not. I'm not going to talk to them. Whereas with you, the first 1 minute I said, okay, I found mine, and I found you when I was not looking, right? Because you understood me. So for me, it was very much, can she understand me more than I can? Because then she becomes my guiding light for me to see what I'm not able to see right now. So that was for me. So what's your advice on that before we go into rapid fire?
I think for me, the advice is still really simple. Watch your body,
Okay.
watch the reaction as you interact with someone.
Mm,
It's not necessary that it's void of discomfort, but is it feeling safe?
mm,
Is it also relaxing? Is it also trying to expand? Is it also trying to emerge in that conversation? Is it trying to open up?
mm.
Are you better able to hear yourself?
Okay. Nice. So be in touch with yourself, be connected with yourself. Because
See
when you
how you respond to the
nice,
other person.
nice.
And
So
see
what
how you do at the end of the session. You should not have to imagine relief. You
okay,
should you should experience the relief. This
nice.
is this is what I would look for. This is what I look for.
Okay.
So when I need therapy, I go to Anil because I know what I will get. I
Ah,
need because I have been I had a journey with some therapists that was far from ideal, and that's what I bring to my chair.
Right. Right.
I don't want prescriptions, I want emergence. I want
Wow.
my truth. Yeah, I want my truth to emerge so that Anil always says never rob the client of that moment where they discover. Don't discover for them. Because
Nice.
when you discover within you, that wisdom stays with you. And that wisdom is like your ocean. You can keep going back to it and
Nice.
come back with a different insight every time. And you've gone from being helpless or in a negative state to a resourceful state.
Nice. Thank you.
That's what you
So
should
let
want.
the butterfly emerge from the cocoon. It's going to struggle. Just watch and support it. Don't try and cut it out because it will lose its wing. Okay,
Oh,
fantastic.
that's beautiful. That's perfect.
Yeah, that's one of my most favorite metaphors. So thank you very much. Now, for those who are watching, you can contact Aditi, and we'll put Aditi's Insta here. I think it's Adore Abundance, right? So we're going to put that here. I think Kitana will put it down here. Feel free to contact. All my therapy has been online, and I can vouch that it has worked for me because you see me smile again. If you've known me personally, I'm smiling again, and feeling like a butterfly with my colors now. So Aditi does this online, which is why I really wanted her to meet this part of the world because I want people to have access to her. Because I love her and she's done so much of good for me and she's wonderful, right? And she also mentioned Anil Thomas. Anil Thomas is where we met. Anil Thomas, runs a program and runs many programs. And I'm going to put Anil Thomas' information also on the site here. Um, Please, if you want any form of program, I think he's brilliant. I say this, I'm attending a program with him. Every time I attend his program, I am uncomfortable because I now know I am just trying to get out of my cocoon. And it's really, really difficult. But when I finally emerge within, and it takes time, it's worth it. All right. So with that, before we go into rapid fire, Aditi, is there anything else you want to tell the audience who've been very patiently listening to you? And I'm sure they've
Yes,
been
we
listening.
really have. So I just want to tell everyone the actual cure for PTSD, which is when you're trapped in those vicious cycles of memories will not shut off, is in NLP. And it just goes into the brain to the event where it happened, where it's stored in your brain, and it deletes it, it distorts it, so that the replay of the memories does not continue. And there's a lot of testimony. This has been around for a long time. It takes just 3 sessions of 2 hours each, and this whole thing collapses. And
Mm,
it's that simple to come back to at least some sort of baseline. How it impacts your personality, etc., is a longer journey. Trauma is a longer journey. But just the collapsing of PTSD, which was earlier the statistics were for 35% recovery over a long period of time. Now the statistics show that 3 sessions of 2 hours each of NLP give you 96% resolution where the diagnosis of PTSD disappears. This is very big for people who are suffering from PTSD because they get their life back, the opportunity to get their life back. And the reason I do this work is that because without this tool, I would not have had the opportunity to get back my access to myself. It's not something you can jump out of on your own. And so it doesn't matter which practitioner you go to. If there's one thing you can take away from here today, it would be this, that please know that PTSD has solutions in NLP. It's a very famous movie theater technique. There is a lot of testimonials, there's a lot of research to back this up. So know that and use it for you and your loved ones.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Sounded like an ad. And yeah, all love to Anil Thomas and Aditi through Adore Abundance. Okay.
Yeah, Anil is
Now,
an amazing teacher.
yeah, yeah.
Amazing. I am so proud he is my teacher.
Yes, yes, yes. I am I proud? Okay, I'm still stretching myself with Anil, but I I'll get there soon. So let's move on to rapid fire very, very quickly. My best therapeutic experience has been with.
I think the ocean.
Oh, lovely.
It's part of
And
the salt. We walk into the ocean and we leave everything behind. And that really has been my,
nice.
it was
One
very recent.
superpower PTSD has given me is.
Sorry, repeat that. I
One, one superpower PTSD has given me is.
um, I think it dissolved me completely. And if you see the word dissolve, it has solve in it. So I have nothing to define or nothing to defend, and
Nice,
it's freedom
nice. It's freedom.
on this
Nice,
side, on this side of it.
nice. Thank you, thank you.
Yes.
One gift that I bring to the world today with my work.
I think I hope I bring the gift of a whole you, the whole you in the client to the world.
Thank
That's.
you. And the impact of PTSD being underrated in life is.
I want to modify your question. The impact of PTSD being less understood by therapists means people lose a lot of time and they lose a lot of life and their family and their work and their health. All of that is lost.
Mhm.
And if this were better understood, all of that would be regained. That's
Nice.
life, actual life.
Thank you. When I'm healed,
Hmm.
finish the sentence.
When I'm healed, I'm love.
Oh, thank you. I'm just gonna read. I wish I could hug you, and I'm good when I
Yeah.
come your space or you come to my space. We need to do these long hugs. I'm just going to acknowledge Lewis. He says, being present, I really like that. My philosophy in life. Yes, Lewis, I totally agree with you. You're very present. Gerald says, wonderful session. Thank you, Malar and Aditi. Have a wonderful weekend ahead.
You too. Thank you, Carol.
Yeah, so that's Gerald and Lewis. And I want to thank everybody who's been here. That's Regina, Jay, Alia, Honey. I think James was in for a bit now, just now, and Victor as well. I missed out anybody? Vijay, Victor. I think that's right. Regina, James. Yeah, I think I've addressed everybody. And Nate, you were very quiet, so I hope you're still there. So Aditi, thank you very much. I'm not going to even ask you permission, but I think you need to come back again because we've got a lot to explore in the area of work that you're doing. And because you're nodding, I'm going to take it as a yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for sure, we want to do some podcasts with you because I think you've been absolutely brilliant in not just addressing the issue, but unpacking it in a way that for me it makes sense and it can reach out to more people to understand and appreciate and know that there's hope and that there's not a lot of hard work involved but just some hard work and we can collapse this.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Right, we need to do that
Yeah.
hard work and
Yeah.
live our lives all over again. So with that, thank you very much for your
Thank you,
time
Malar.
and for being
I
in live. Thank you, and we'll say goodbye now and I'll see you again real soon. Aditi, thank you for your time.
thank you, Malar, and thank you everyone who was here. This is such a big deal for me, and I'm so happy to have had this time with all of you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
All right. Okay, as we say bye to Aditi, and I hope you enjoyed the session and it was very useful. I know, I could be biased because she's my favorite, but, do tell us in the comments if you want to hear more and what other stuff that you want to hear about trauma and PTSD because then I can get Aditi back. Why Aditi? Because I think she's brilliant, full stop, right? So tell us more, give us in your comments, give us some feedback so that I can bring her back and ask her the right questions. Otherwise, do feel free to connect with her, contact her, and make her your therapist. I happen to be generous, not so possessive in this area, so I'm happy to share her with you because she's amazing. With that, I want to thank you for your time and for being with us. And I hope this topic resonates with you to help you connect with yourself and the people you love and help the people you love and reach out. So share this with people if you find this useful because I think the content just given is extremely useful. With that, I'm signing off. This is Malal from Hearts&Minds Development Center. I will see you again next Friday, 12 o'clock, same time, same place, but with a different sari and perhaps a better smile. Take care. See you. Bye.